The Christie's auction house hummed with anticipation. Art collectors, gallery owners, and the ultra-wealthy filled the elegant room, their whispered conversations creating a gentle buzz beneath the crystal chandeliers. In the front row, my parents sat uncomfortably in their department store best, looking out of place among the Chanel suits and bespoke tuxedos. I watched from a private viewing room above the auction floor, remembering the last time they'd seen my work, 5 years ago when they'd thrown my paintings out of their garage. "Quit wasting time on paintings," my father had yelled, tossing canvas after canvas into the rain. "No daughter of mine is going to be a starving artist." My mother had stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "The Michael's daughter is in medical school. The Patel's girl is a lawyer. And our Sophie? Playing with paint like a child." What they didn't know was that even then, my work was already selling in underground galleries under the pseudonym SV Knight. While they thought I was finally being sensible by taking a job as a gallery assistant, I was actually building connections in the art world, carefully crafting both my work and my mysterious persona. "Miss Knight." My agent Marcus appeared at my elbow. "Everything is ready. The first piece goes up in 10 minutes. I nodded, adjusting my designer dress, Valentino, though my parents would never recognize it. The small diamond pendant at my throat cost more than their house, but like my art, its true value wasn't obvious to the untrained eye. Through the one-way glass, I could see my sister Amanda arriving, making her way to our parents. She'd always been their ideal. Practical, conventional, pursuing a respectable career in finance. The fact that she made a fraction of what my last painting sold for was beside the point. "Did you see the catalog estimates?" she was saying to our parents. $5 million for a single painting. It's ridiculous. No one's art is worth that much. If only they knew that SV Knight had sold 3 paintings last month for twice that amount. That museums around the world were competing for my work. That the mysterious artist they dismissed as overpriced was their own daughter, whom they'd kicked out for wasting her life on art. "The collectors are getting excited," Marcus reported, checking his tablet. "The Zhao family is here from Beijing. The Rothschilds sent their art buyer. And yes," he smiled slightly, "your sister's investment firm is representing a client who wants to invest in emerging artists." I suppressed a laugh. Amanda had spent years mocking my artistic dreams, and now her firm was trying to buy my work as an investment. The irony was exquisite. "Ladies and gentlemen," the auctioneer's voice cut through the murmur. "Welcome to Christie's evening auction, featuring the highly anticipated new collection by SV Knight." The crowd settled into their seats. My parents looked around nervously, clearly feeling out of place among the global elite. They were here because Amanda had convinced them that art could be a sensible investment, not knowing that their disowned artist daughter was about to teach them the true value of following one's passion. "The first lot," the auctioneer continued, "is Shadows of Doubt, a signature piece from the artist's Family Ties series." The painting was unveiled, drawing gasps from the crowd. It was a massive canvas, 6 feet tall, depicting a young woman turning away from a family dinner table. The figures at the table were rendered in harsh, conventional strokes, while the standing woman seemed to dissolve into swirls of color and light. My mother leaned forward, squinting. Something about that scene. Of course something seemed familiar. It was based on the last family dinner I'd attended, the night they'd given me an ultimatum: quit art or quit being their daughter. "Opening bid," the auctioneer announced, $3 million. My father choked on his complimentary champagne. $3 million was more than he'd earned in his entire career as an insurance salesman, the respectable job he'd wanted me to pursue. The bidding started, hands raising quickly around the room. $4 million. 4.5. $5 million. Amanda raised her paddle at 5.2, trying to secure the piece for her firm's client. But the painting quickly soared past her budget. $7 million, called out a voice from the back. A major museum curator I'd had dinner with last week. $8 million, countered the Zhao family's representative. I watched my family's faces as the price climbed higher and higher. My father's jaw clenched. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. Amanda's professional mask cracked as she realized she'd been completely wrong about the art market she claimed to understand. Sold. The auctioneer's gavel fell. For $12 million to the private collector from Geneva. My parents sat in stunned silence while Amanda frantically texted her bosses, probably trying to explain why she'd underestimated the market so dramatically. But this was just the beginning. There were 7 more paintings in tonight's auction, each one telling a piece of my story, each one worth millions to collectors who understood true art. And my family was about to learn exactly how much their worthless daughter's work was really worth. Marcus checked his phone. The press is already reporting on the opening sale. Art blogs are going crazy. And yes, he smiled, your family's reactions are being captured by our photographer, exactly as requested. I nodded, watching the next painting being brought out. Sometimes revenge isn't about confrontation. It's about letting people realize their own mistakes in the most public way possible. And this auction was about to become very, very public. The second painting was even larger than the first. A triptych titled, Inheritance of Shadows. The 3 panels showed a progression. A young artist in a cramped garage studio, her work being thrown into the rain, and finally an empty room with only paint-splattered shadows remaining. Opening bid, the auctioneer announced, $4 million. Amanda's hand twitched toward her paddle, but she'd already been priced out of the market. Our parents sat rigid in their seats, watching as international collectors bid millions for art that told the story of their cruelty, though they didn't realize it yet. Ms. Knight, Marcus whispered, the Museum of Modern Art's director is asking if you'll consider a private showing next month. I smiled, remembering how my mother had torn down the paintings I'd hung in my childhood bedroom, calling them amateur scribbles. Now the world's most prestigious museums were competing for my work. $8 million, called a collector from Dubai. $9 million, countered a famous Hollywood director. The bidding continued while I watched my family's reactions through the one-way glass. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of red. The same color it had been the day he discovered I'd turned down a job at his insurance company to pursue art full-time. Sold. For $15 million. The crowd burst into excited murmurs. 2 paintings, $27 million. And we were just getting started. The next piece, the auctioneer announced, is perhaps S.V. Knight's most personal work to date. Family Portrait in Absence. The painting that emerged was deceptively simple. A family dinner scene with an empty chair, the missing person's presence shown only through distorted reflections in the other figure's wine glasses. It was based on the first holiday dinner after they'd disowned me. Though again, they didn't recognize themselves in the cruel, shadowed faces around the table. Something about these paintings, my mother whispered to Amanda. They feel familiar. Of course they felt familiar. Every piece in tonight's collection was drawn from my memories of their rejection, transformed into art that spoke to anyone who'd ever been told their dreams were worthless. Opening bid, $5 million. The bidding was even more frenzied this time. Word had spread through the art world that this collection was special, that these pieces told a story bigger than themselves. Collectors who'd come prepared to spend millions now found themselves outbid by others willing to spend tens of millions. My phone buzzed with messages from gallery owners and museum curators. Extraordinary work. Must have your next collection. Name your price. I thought about the tiny studio apartment I'd lived in after they'd thrown me out, working multiple jobs while painting through the night. About the years of building my reputation under a pseudonym, letting my work speak for itself without family connections or inherited privilege. 12 million. 13. 15 million. Amanda was frantically making calls, probably trying to secure more funding from her firm. She'd always prided herself on understanding the market, on making smart investments unlike her artistic sister. Now she was watching millions slip away because she'd underestimated art's true value. Sold. For $18 million. My father stood up abruptly, his face flushed. This is insane. It's just paint on canvas. Several nearby collectors turned to glare at him. In their world, art wasn't just paint. It was emotion, story, truth captured in color and form. Everything I'd tried to explain to my family for years. The next piece, the auctioneer continued smoothly, represents a turning point in S.V. Knight's career. The Price of Dreams. This painting was my masterpiece. A massive canvas showing a young woman standing at a crossroads. Behind her, a path of conventional success filled with money and status symbols. Before her, a harder road leading to an explosion of color and light. It was the moment I'd chosen art over my family's approval, captured in oils and acrylics. Opening bid, $10 million. The room crackled with energy. Collectors who'd been holding back now jumped into the bidding, recognizing that this collection was making art history. Through my private window, I watched my family's carefully constructed worldview continue to crumble. Everything they thought they knew about success, about worth, about what constituted a respectable career was being dismantled by the millions being offered for my worthless art. $20 million, called out a Saudi prince. $22 million, countered a tech billionaire. Amanda had given up even pretending to bid. She sat slumped in her chair, her professional demeanor cracking as she watched others casually bid more money than she'd make in her entire sensible career. Sold. For $25 million. Marcus appeared at my elbow again. The press is calling this the auction of the decade. Art critics are already writing reviews. And yes, he smiled, your family's reactions are providing excellent material for the documentary team. Because sometimes revenge isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about ensuring their mistake is documented for posterity. And we were only halfway through the auction. The auction's momentum built like a crescendo, each piece revealing another layer of my journey. The fifth painting, Echoes of Rejection, showed a series of doors closing, each one bearing a perfect reproduction of my family's expressions the day they'd thrown me out. Opening bid, $15 million. My mother leaned forward, squinting at the painting. Those faces, they looked so. Of course they looked familiar. I'd spent months perfecting every detail. My father's dismissive scowl, my mother's disappointed frown, Amanda's smug superiority. Each brushstroke captured years of judgment transformed into art worth millions. $25 million, called a Chinese tech mogul. $28 million, countered a European countess. Amanda had stopped checking her phone. Her carefully constructed image of success, the practical sister who'd made all the right choices, was crumbling as she watched collectors casually bid more for a single painting than her investment firm managed in a year. Sold. For $30 million. Marcus appeared with updates. The Louvre is inquiring about a permanent installation. The Venice Biennale wants you as their featured artist. And your latest piece just set a record for a living artist under 40. I smiled, remembering my mother's words. Art doesn't pay the bills, Sophie. Be realistic. The sixth painting emerged, The Currency of Dreams. It depicted a burning pile of business suits and briefcases, with phoenixes of pure color rising from the ashes. I'd painted it the day Amanda had sent me a job listing for an accounting firm, saying it was time to grow up. Opening bid, $20 million. The bidding exploded. Collectors who'd been holding back now fought openly for a piece of art history. My father's face grew increasingly red as he watched people casually spend more than his lifetime earnings on paintings he would have thrown away. $35 million. $40 million. $45 million. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from galleries, museums, and collectors. Masterful work. Revolutionary perspective. Price is no object. Sold. For $50 million. The crowd erupted in applause. My mother clutched her cheap purse, looking dazed. Amanda had given up any pretense of professional composure, her mascara smearing as she realized how completely she'd misjudged both the art world and her failed sister. The seventh painting was my personal favorite, The Worth of Worthless Things. It showed a young woman, clearly me, though my family hadn't realized it yet, standing in an explosion of color and light, while gray figures in business attire faded into shadows behind her. Opening bid, $30 million. The room crackled with electricity. This wasn't just an auction anymore. It was a revolution, a statement about the true value of art and dreams and following one's passion despite everything. $50 million. $60 million. $70 million. Through my private window, I watched my family's world continue to unravel. Everything they'd believed about success, about worth, about what constituted a real career was being demolished by the astronomical sums being offered for my hobby. Sold. For $80 million. Marcus rushed in with news. The media is calling this unprecedented. Art historians are already declaring it a defining moment in contemporary art. And yes, he grinned, we're capturing every moment of your family's reactions. The final painting was unveiled. Recognition. It was a self-portrait, though only I knew it. My face emerging from shadows into light, surrounded by the very room we were sitting in watching an auction unfold. Meta-commentary on art, value and vindication. Opening bid, $50 million. My father stood up again, shouting over the bidding, "This is ridiculous. No painting is worth this much." The room fell silent. Collectors turned to stare at him with a mixture of disdain and pity. He was revealing himself as someone who truly didn't understand art's worth, just as he'd never understood his daughter's worth. Then a voice cut through the silence, $100 million. It was the director of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. 120 million, countered the Guggenheim's representative. 150 million, called the Saudi prince. My family sat frozen as the bidding continued to climb. Everything they thought they knew about success, about value, about their failed artist daughter was being rewritten in real time. Sold. For $200 million. The auctioneer's gavel fell for the final time. The crowd erupted in a standing ovation. Art history had been made, and my family had front row seats to their own humiliation. Marcus appeared with the final tallies. Total sales, $447 million. A new record for a single artist auction. And, he added with a smile, the documentary team got everything. Because sometimes revenge isn't just about success. It's about making sure everyone witnesses the moment people realize how completely wrong they were. Later that night, after the crowds had gone and the paintings were being carefully transported to their new homes, I stood in my private viewing room watching my family linger in the empty auction house. Who is SV Knight? My mother was asking anyone who would listen. Why do these paintings feel so personal?